You're guaranteed to become professional.
I think this video is actually such an important topic, and especially if you're 13, 14, 15, 16, maybe 17 years old right now and you're genuinely serious about badminton. Because when you're around that age, you have something that I think most players don't really appreciate until it's gone, which is time. You have years ahead of you where you can build your speed, your technique, your instincts, your physical ability, your tournament experience, and all of these things. And the decisions you make now can genuinely put you in a completely different position by the time you're 18, 19, or 20 years old. So I thought this might be one of those videos where it's actually worth pulling out a notebook or opening your notes app, because I'm going to go through the 8 things that I would personally focus if I was a teenager again and I wanted to give myself the best possible chance of becoming a professional badminton player. And obviously, I'm not saying that if you follow these 8 things, you're guaranteed to become professional. Nobody can guarantee that. But I do think if you actually follow this stuff for 4, 5, 6 years, you're going to be in so much better position than somebody who just goes to normal badminton training, does whatever they're told, and just hopes everything somehow works out. And some of the things I'm going to say might be a little bit different from what you normally hear. Some coaches might disagree. Some strength coaches might disagree. That is completely fine. I'm just going to tell you what I would personally do based on everything I've learned from badminton, from training myself, getting injured, working with players, studying professional athletes, and basically spending years trying to understand why some players improve incredibly fast, while others can train for a very long time and still stay more or less at the same level. So anyways, let's get into it. Now the first thing I would focus on if I was a teenager again is speed. And I would probably focus on this so much earlier than what the most badminton players do. Because what normally happens when a young badminton player is getting serious about the sport is that everybody starts talking about stamina. That you need better stamina. You need to run more hard conditioning trainings. You need to do harder footwork trainings. You need to survive those long matches and long tournament days. And obviously, all of that matters. I'm not saying fitness is useless, but I think there's a problem when you spend all this time trying to improve your stamina while you're not actually very fast. And the easiest way I can explain this is with an example. Let's say we have 2 15-year-old players. Player 1 has maximum speed of 10, and the player 2 has a maximum speed of 8. And let's say that during a normal rally, during a point, both of them need to move around at the speed of 7. For the first player, that's only around 70% of what they're capable of. But for the second player, that's almost maximum speed. So even if they have the exact same aerobic fitness, which player do you think is going to look more tired? The second player. Because every normal movement is already close to their maximum. And this is basically the idea of speed reserve. The higher your maximum speed is, the easier normal badminton movement becomes relative to what you can actually do. And this is why sometimes when somebody says, my stamina is terrible, you and I don't automatically think, okay, you need to run more. That's what all the badminton players and coaches say. Maybe they just need to become faster, actually. And sometimes, and something I see all the time in badminton players is players supposedly doing speed training when they're already exhausted. They already played badminton for an hour, and then they do this multi-shuttle, then maybe some circuits, then some footwork. And after all of that, somebody says, now, let's work on some speed. But you're not really fast anymore at that point. There's no way you're going to improve speed in any way. So if I was 14 or 15 right now, I would actually have some training where the entire goal is moving fast. Short sprints, fast first steps, jumps, plyometrics, reactive starts, changes of direction, for example. And I would actually rest enough between the repetitions that I can move fast again. Because if the goal is Speed, I don't care whether you're completely exhausted at the end. I care whether you moved quickly, your maximum. So obviously, later, you also need to build the ability to repeat it the speed. And that's where speed conditioning comes in. You still need your aerobic fitness. You still need to recover between rallies. You still need to play long matches. But I personally would rather have a 16-year-old who is very fast and needs to improve a lot of their conditioning than somebody who can run forever, who has the best aerobic fitness, but has no real speed. Because you can build conditioning so fast. It's very trainable. So the first piece of advice is basically this. Especially when you're young, don't spend all your time trying to become less tired. Spend some serious time trying to become faster. Now, the second thing I would do is play a lot of more unpredictable badminton. And this is probably another one where some coaches are going to disagree with me, because there's a lot of very repetitive training in badminton. The feeder knows where the shuttle is going, and you also know where the shuttle is going. You know already what shot you're going to hit. You know where you're going to recover, and then you repeat the same thing with no intent 50 times. And look, I'm not saying that that's useless. If you're learning a technique, obviously you need repetition. If your overhead technique is bad, then yes, you need to practice your overhead. If you can't play a net shot, you need to practice the net shots or your touch anyway. And there's nothing wrong with that. But what I think happens is that players stay in this predictable type of training for way too long. And the problem is that badminton isn't itself predictable. When you're in a match, your opponent isn't going to tell you, okay, the next shuttle is going to your forehand front court. And after that, I'm playing to the net. You don't know. You have to watch them. You have to react. This reacting speed also is trainable. You have to make decisions. And this is why I think young players especially should spend an enormous time of actually playing badminton. Games, matches, different opponents, these small-sided games, restrictive games, like half-court games, some conditioned games, or if you know what I mean by freestyle multi-shuttle, training where maybe you know the shuttle is going to go in the two corners, but you don't know to which one. Then later 3 corners, then eventually the whole court, and so on. So you still have enough structure that you can actually improve something, but you have also this uncertainty, because that uncertainty is a huge part of the skill. And when you watch someone like Lin Dan or Lee Chong-wei or Momoda, sometimes it almost looks like they know where the shuttle is going before their opponent even hits it. And obviously, they're incredibly talented players, but they've also seen these situations thousands of times. They've seen these little grip changes. They've seen the body positioning. They've seen all these patterns. It's all automatic by instinct. So their brain recognizes what's happening before somebody with less experience does. And you can build a lot of that through exposure. So imagine we have 2 14-year-olds again. One of them spends most of the next 4 years doing very clean, repetitive drills. And the other one still works on the technique, obviously, but they play loads of different players, opponents, play loads of games, do random feeding, small-sided games, freestyle drills, and constantly have to make these decisions. And by the time these 2 players are 18, I would expect that the second one, of course, to be much better at actually solving badminton situations. And that's really what I mean when I talk about instinct. You don't want to be 18 all in the third set thinking about where your elbow should be or which foot goes to where. You want to see the shuttle and play. So my second piece of advice is don't make all your badminton training predictable. Obviously, build the technique first, but then start adding randomness as early as you reasonably can. Now, the third piece of advice is don't blindly copy what professional players are doing right now. And this is something I think almost every young athlete does at some point. You see Victor Axelsen doing some exercise on Instagram. So now you're also doing it. You see some Chinese player doing a crazy multi-shuttle, 50 shuttles routine, and then you copy it. And then you see Lakshya Sen running, long distance running. and now you stand yourself running too. Or you see Chou Chen doing some heavy squats, and now you decide heavy squats must be the secret. And the problem with that is that you're looking at somebody who's already finished professional athlete. Maybe they've been playing badminton for 15 years or maybe 20 years. They already have the technique. They already know all the movements. They already have thousands of matches behind. They already have the physical base. They might have a physio, a strength coach, a badminton coach, a sparring partners, all of that around them. So when you copy one exercise from their current routine, you're not necessarily copying the thing that actually made them good. And this is what almost no player or coach understands. It's crazy. And personally, I think it's much more interesting to look at what the great players were doing before they became great. What were they doing at the age of 10? What were they doing at 12? And what did their training look like at 15? Who were they playing with? How much badminton were they actually playing? Reverse engineering their whole career and their career paths. Were they doing other sports? How early did they start competing? When did they start strength training seriously? And what kind of environment did they grow up in? Because if you're 14, 15, 16 right now, that's much more relevant to you. You're not trying to maintain an Olympic champion. You're trying to build yourself. And those are different things. It's almost like looking at Formula One car and deciding that the way to build one is to copy the tires they're already using this weekend. Okay, maybe the tires matter, but there are quite a few things that came before that. So absolutely, watch professional players. I think you should watch loads of them. Watch their matches. Watch their training. Learn from them. But always ask yourself, why are they doing this? And is it actually appropriate for me right now? Are these the progressions that will actually help me go professional? Because sometimes the answer is yes. And sometimes you're just copying someone because a famous player did it. So step number 3 is basically reverse engineer how great players were built instead of just copying everything they do today. Now the 4th thing is the gym. And if you're a teenage boy, especially, don't accidentally become a bodybuilder the moment you get a gym membership. Because I see this all the time. You're going to the gym at 15 or 16 and then you see on TikTok, you watch some gym content and suddenly badminton strength training becomes chest day, back day, arms day, leg days. You're doing 5 different exercises for different body parts, isolating the muscles. You want bigger bench press. You're trying to gain as much as muscle as possible and strength. And then 6 months later, you look bigger and maybe you are stronger, but somehow you don't really move any better on court. And again, I'm not saying you shouldn't lift weights. I think strength training is really important. You should get stronger. But you have to remember why you're in the gym. You're not there to become good at going to the gym. You are there because you want the gym to make you better at badminton. So I care about things like single leg strength, hamstrings for injury prevention, calves, hips, trunk is very important, shoulder strength, tendon capacity, general strength, all of these with the correct progressions from off season to in season. But then you also need to actually express the force quickly. So you also need jumping, hopping, bounding, sprinting, throwing, change of direction, all of those things matter as well. And I think a really simple way to judge your gym training is to look at whether what you're doing is actually helping your sport. Let's say you've been to the gym for 1 year. Your squat has gone up a lot. Great. But can you actually jump higher? Can you break faster? Are you actually faster in badminton court? Do you feel more powerful on court? Because if none of that improved, then I would at least ask whether your gym training is doing what you wanted it to do. Maybe it is. Maybe it just needs more time. But ask the question, because it's very easy to start changing gym progress for the sake of gym progress. And I did some of this myself when I was younger. You find an exercise, you get stronger at it. It feels like you're progressing in your career, but because of the numbers are going up. But badminton doesn't care what number is written in your training app. The sport cares about what you can actually do on court. So my fourth piece of advice is absolutely use the gym, get strong, but always remember that badminton is the thing you're training for. Now, the fifth thing I would tell you is learn to think for yourself. And what I mean by that is stop assuming that your coach automatically has every part of your career figured it out. And I need to be careful with this one because I don't want some 14-year-old watching this, then going into training tomorrow and telling their coach that someone from YouTube said that they're wrong about everything. The coach is completely wrong. That's not what I meant. Your coach is probably and knows far more about badminton than you do. Listen to them. Learn from them. Ask questions, but understand that ultimately it is your career. Let's say your coach, he's 15. He has 15 players in the session, maybe 20. They see you for a few hours every week. And then they have their own life. They have other players, maybe another job, competitions, family, whatever. They can't spend every hour of every day thinking about exactly what would be the best for your career. But you can spend a lot more time thinking about yourself. And when I was younger, basically, I thought that if I just trained really hard and did what everybody told me, the coaches told me, eventually everything would work out. So I trained, I did all the drills, I did the fitness, I did training at best 3 times a day. And when things went going well, normally my answer would be, go even more, this David Goggins mentality. But then I started having knee pain, then Achilles problems, then shoulder problems, and eventually I had a stress fracture in my back. And at some point, you have to stop and go, okay, what am I actually doing? Why am I doing this drill? Why am I doing this exercise? Why am I running today? What's the purpose of this session? What is actually limiting me in matches? Those are useful questions. And I think the best situation is when you have a good coach and you also understand your own development. Then you can have these conversations where your coach says something. You understand why. You ask questions, you learn, and gradually you become less dependent on somebody simply telling you what to do. Because they might not know what will be the best for you. Eventually, you might even change coaches. You might even train abroad. You maybe go to university somewhere. Things change. And if your entire badminton career and development disappears the moment one coach disappears, then obviously there might be a problem. And this is actually one of the reasons I built EBM the way I did. I wanted players to understand the different parts of development instead of basically just collecting instructions. So if you want the full system, I'll leave that below the description. But anyway, the main point here isn't to stop listening to coaches. It's almost the opposite. Learn enough that you can get even more value from good coaching. So step number 5 is to take responsibility for your own understanding, for your own development. Now step number 6, learn how to recover. And again, this is probably not the most exciting one, but I think it becomes more important every single year that you get better. Because when you're 12 or 13, you train 3 times a week. You can get away with a lot. Maybe you sleep badly one night. Maybe you eat badly. You still feel like, okay. Then you get to 16. Now, maybe you can train 6 times per week. You have gym, school, tournaments, traveling, friends, work, maybe morning training sometimes. And suddenly you can't get away with the same things anymore. And this is something I learned the hard way. For me, for a long time, the answer to basically every problem was just more training. I had a bad match. I need to train harder. I need to think harder. I was feeling slow. I need to add more speed training. Someone is better than me. Train harder. And I thought that was what all the serious and professional athletes did back in their days. But the problem is that training is only useful if you can actually recover from it and adapt to it. And this is where I think badminton players sometimes get obsessed with how difficult a session feels. You finish training completely destroyed and you think, wow, that was an amazing session. You thank the coach, and maybe it was an amazing session, but maybe you're just tired, exhausted, and that's not the same thing as a good session. Let's say Monday is really hard, Tuesday is really hard, Wednesday is hard, Thursday is hard, Friday you're supposed to do speed, but of course, there's no way you can get better at speed. And then Saturday you have a tournament. Then you play badly and you wonder why. Maybe you were never actually fresh enough to perform. So I really like organizing training into harder and easier days. If Monday is high day, then okay, do your fast badminton, do your speed, and after speed you do your gym. There's a certain structure and order what's the most optimal. Push yourself. But then on Tuesday, it can be easier. Technical work, tactical work, easier sessions. And then you can actually perform properly when the next hard day comes, maybe Wednesday or Thursday. Because I think the worst place to live is where every day is kind of hard. It's like this medium. You're never fresh enough to be really fast, but you never resting enough to fully recover. And then obviously you have the basic recovery stuff. Food, hydration, and sleep especially. If you're 15 or 16, training almost every single day and staying on your phone until 1 in the morning, every night, I wouldn't start by buying some crazy recovery device. I'd start just by sleeping, I'll tell you. Same with food. If you're training a lot, you need to eat enough. You need quality protein, not processed. You need not unprocessed carbohydrates. You need actual energy to train and recover. And none of this means you should become scared of hard training. That's not what I'm saying. Sometimes you need very hard training. Sometimes you need to push yourself. You need difficult matches. You need to learn to perform tired. But there's a difference between sometimes training tired and being tired basically all year. So step number 6 is learn how much training you can actually handle, recover from it, and then build that capacity over time. Now, step number 7 is play people better than you, and a lot. Because I think there's something very comfortable about being one of the best players in your normal training group or club. You win, you feel very confident because you win all the time, you look good. And obviously, everybody likes that. But if your goal is to become professional, at some point, you need people around you who can make you feel bad at badminton again. You need someone to humble you, whose speed is faster than you. Somebody who attacks your weaknesses, your weak sides every time. Somebody who makes your normal smash look completely average. Somebody who gives you less time than you're used to. Because that's how you find out what the next level actually looks like. So let's say we have, again, two 15-year-olds that are exactly the same level right now. Player 1 mostly plays people at their level or slightly below. They win a lot. But player 2 constantly looks for people who are slightly better. Maybe older juniors, senior players, better clubs, better tournaments. They lose more. But every week they're getting exposed to faster badminton, higher quality badminton. And then you go forward 3 years, they're both 18. Player 2 has spent 3 years constantly adapting to a level above them. And I think that matters a lot. And this is also why I would compete as much as you realistically can when you're young. Because tournaments give you situations training doesn't fully give you. Think about 19 all situations. Third set, playing somebody you have never seen before. Playing somebody everybody thinks you should beat. Playing somebody you're expected to lose to. Different halls, different environments, different shuttle speed. You have travel days, long days. You're very nervous. You're maybe losing badly at first, coming back the next week. All of that, what I just mentioned, is experience. And when you're 14 or 15, losing is actually pretty cheap. You lose, nobody's career ended. You just go home, you learn, you train, you come back. So I wouldn't wait until you think you're good enough. Competition is one of the things that makes you good enough. Go play different people, different clubs, different styles. Singles, doubles, mixed if you can, older people, younger people, all these different disciplines, fast players, slow players, weird players, anything, because every different opponent teaches your brain something slightly different. And I think one of the biggest advantages you can build as a teenager is by having an enormous library of badminton situations in your head. So step number 7 is get out of the environment where you always look good. Find badminton that makes you uncomfortable. Now step number 8, and this is the last one, is stop waiting for somebody to discover you. And I think this is something a lot of young players don't really think, but until they're already quite good. They assume that if they become good enough, eventually somebody will notice them. Some coach, some club, some sponsor, some federation. And maybe that happens. But I would not rely on that, because you can actually become a very good badminton player and still be almost completely invincible. Let's say you're 17 years old. You're one of the best players at the club. Maybe you're even one of the better players in your region. But you only play the same local tournaments. You train with the same people. You never go anywhere. You never talk to coaches outside of your club. You never post any badminton content online. You don't contact anyone. And then how exactly are people supposed to know what you're doing? Now take another player who is exactly your level. They enter more tournaments. They enter the camps. They talk to the people. They introduce themselves. They play at different clubs whenever they have the chance. They message stronger players and ask ruthlessly if they can train. Maybe they can go pro. Maybe they can go abroad occasionally. Maybe they post matches or training online. After 3 years, those two players could have completely different opportunities, even if they started at the same level. And that's something I want to that teenagers understand. You don't have to wait until you're professional to start creating opportunities for yourself. If you want to train somewhere, ask. If you want to go to a camp, find and ask somebody. If you want to play internationally, look at the tournament calendar. Ask a coach. Ask questions. Ask a federation. Find out what you need to actually do. If you want to train with somebody better than you, message them. Maybe they say no, and nothing happened. Message someone else. And today, you also have social media, which is a massive advantage if you can actually use it properly. I'm not saying that every 15-year-old badminton player needs to become a badminton influencer. You don't, but you can put your badminton online. Post some matches. Post your progress. Connect with other players. Follow coaches. Talk to people. Because sponsors can't really sponsor somebody they have never heard of. And clubs can't invite somebody they don't know exists. And other players can't ask you to train if they have no idea who you are. And badminton is actually a pretty small world. One player knows another player, that player knows a coach, and that coach maybe knows somebody at another club. And suddenly one connection leads somewhere you would never really expect. So I think getting comfortable with the uncomfortable asking is really important. You ask 10 people, maybe 8 say no, maybe 1 doesn't answer, maybe 1 says yes. Great. You have now one opportunity that the player who never asked anybody doesn't have. So step number 8 is don't just sit there and hope somebody eventually notices you. Make it easy for people to know who you are and what you're trying to do. And I think when you put all of these together, this is where it becomes really interesting. Let's say you're 14 years old right now. Instead of spending your entire teenage development doing conditioning, you actually spend some serious time building speed. You still get fit, obviously, but you also become genuinely fast. You don't spend your entire life doing these robotic drills. You build a technique, and then you start playing more unpredictable badminton. You build your instincts. You watch professionals, but instead of blindly copying their current routines, you actually try to understand how were they developed from the start. Then you go to the gym, you get stronger, but you keep badminton your number one priority. You learn to think for yourself instead of expecting one coach to manage every part of your career. So, plus you learn how to recover so you can actually train and not injure yourself. Plus you play against better players, you compete, you lose, you get exposed to higher levels, and then you start actively creating opportunities instead of sitting around waiting. Now imagine doing that to 14 to 18. That's 4 years of speed development, 4 years of badminton situations, of matches, of getting stronger, of learning about your own game, of gradually meeting more players and coaches, of building yourself. Then compare that 4 years with somebody who just went to normal club training 3 times a week and did whatever happened to be on the old school coaches program and hope that everything will work out in the end. These players will look completely different by 18. And I think that's really the biggest point of this whole video. Nothing here is a magic hack. You don't suddenly become a professional because you did the most optimal sprint session I told you, or played one better player, or messaged one coach. It's the fact that you do these things for years. They compound. And for some of you, you're going to finish this video and think, okay, that was interesting. And tomorrow, basically, you change nothing. And that's fine. But I know there are some of you who are watching this, maybe 13, 14, 15, maybe 16-year-olds, and you genuinely have this thing where you want to be the best badminton player possible. You want this pro career. And if that's you, I really want you that you understand how valuable position you are in right now. And when I look back in my own career, there's so many things I would change. I trained a lot. I cared a lot. I wanted to become really good professional player, but I also wasted a lot of time doing the things because I thought that professionals are supposed to do this. I trained more. I tried different things. I got injured. I learned some things much later than I wish I had. And I didn't really have somebody to sit me down when I was young and explain the big picture. So that's basically what I wanted this video to be. If I was talking to the 14-year-old version of myself, these are the things I would tell him. Get fast while you're young. Play more unpredictable badminton. Don't blindly copy professionals. Use the gym for badminton. Learn to think for yourself. Learn to recover. Play people better than you. And create your own opportunities. And wherever you are in those 8 things right now, it doesn't really matter. Because you're already very fast. Maybe you're already very fast. But maybe all your training is very predictable. Okay, work on that. Maybe you have really good badminton, but your recovery is terrible. Fix that. Maybe you're already one of the better juniors in your country, but you're not really putting yourself in situations where the next opportunities can happen. Start doing that. If you, for example, need the sponsors, you don't need to fix everything tomorrow. Just keep moving forward. Because if you're 14 right now, 1 year from now, you're going to be 15, whether you use this year or not. Then you're 16, then 17, and eventually people stop talking about what you might become one day, and they start looking at what level you actually are right now. So use the time properly. And if you want the full Badminton Enhanced systems, where we go much deeper into all of these things, I leave the EBM below. But either way, where you are right now, just keep going, keep learning, keep playing, keep putting yourself into better environments. And yeah, I'm definitely in your corner and rooting for you. I'll see you in the next one.